If I do nothing more tonight than to pronounce that looking around the room, I can assure you Chick Evans's dream is alive. We'd like to think that we're experts at running first-class golf events. But I think we're even better at turning out well-educated young men and women who excel in life to become leaders and role models in our society. In 1930, the first two Evans Scholars began school at Northwestern University at an annual tuition cost of $600. That's only 2 zeros, $600. Now, more than 85 years later, we have 910 kids in school at 19 universities across the country at an annual tuition cost of over $16 million. And by 2020, we are proud and committed to sending 1,000 kids to school and in school by 2020.
100 years ago, with 7 hickory-shafted clubs, Chick became first the U.S. Open winner here at this lovely club, and then only 10 weeks later, won the U.S. Amateur at Marion, a feat that has only been matched by one other person, Bob Jones, in 1930, and I suspect it's unlikely that it will ever happen again. You know, when you think about, we heard this briefly at the beginning of the program, but when you think about the Evans Scholarship Program and over 910 students in school this year with a goal of 1,000, and I'm sure they're probably going to get that before 2020, that along with over 330 million plus, I believe, that has been raised for this wonderful concept since its inception for scholarships and housing, along with over 10,000 alumni, many of whom are here. All of you must be incredibly proud for what you've accomplished, and I certainly am honored to be in your presence, so job well done.
Now, my argument tonight is going to be very simple. I got my BA from Brandeis University in Boston. I graduated summa cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa. I won a Marshall Scholarship to Oxford University in England. But tonight, I want to talk about the priceless education that I got at Brookview Country Club on Highway 12 as a caddy beginning around 1960. I got my start as a caddy for my dad, pulling his cart because I was way too little to carry anything around Brookview those days, where we also belonged. The pay was $3.50 for 18 holes, $4 if I did an exceptionally good job. And sometimes if my dad wasn't playing and I happened to catch a loop with a really big tipper who won a few Nassaus, I walked away with $5. Oh, did I feel rich with $10 in my pocket after a weekend's work as a 12-year-old kid. And that brings us to the first lesson you learn as a caddy. Not all adults are created equal. You learn that there is something called character and that all adults don't have the same character. Even people you admired before you caddied for them. That's actually quite a revelation when you're 10 years old. Caddying was a weekly tutorial, in fact, in the differences in how adults behave around money, with money, and when money was on the line. We caddies all knew who cheated. We all knew who had integrity. I never forget caddying for a member, a good player in City League at Hazeltine one summer, and where I'm now blessedly a member. He shot 80. I knew because I was keeping track. But the other player keeping the score marked down 79. My guy took that 79 because it sounded a whole lot better at the bar afterwards. And on the drive back, he asked me not to mention the discrepancy. I never did. I also never forgot it 47 years later. And as you go around life, you really discover there are just two kind of people. And there are actually two kind of countries. There are people who are constantly cursing their luck, and there are people who will play the ball as best they can from wherever it lies and see it as a challenge because they know that the one thing they can control is not the bounce of the ball, but their own attitude toward hitting it. In that context, self-confidence and optimism are powers unto themselves. There are countries which, when faced with adversity or a major external challenge, tend to collectively say, I'm behind, what's wrong with me? Let's learn from the best and fix it. And they adapt and they change. And there are countries that say, I'm behind, what did you do to me? It's your fault. Knowing the difference between those two is one of the most important lessons of geopolitics I found as a columnist. And I first learned that lesson caddying on a golf course. Now, my short-lived professional caddying career began, as Pat noted, in 1970 when I caddied for Chichi Rodriguez in the U.S. Open at Hazeltine. It was an experience rich with lessons for me. I was in 11th grade in high school and had caddied regularly during the summer at Brookview. Most of the clubs around Minneapolis back then were invited, and pay close attention to this, to nominate 4 caddies to caddy in the U.S. Open. And I was one of them from my club. In those days, and this is the point, professional golfers were not allowed by the USGA to bring a professional caddy to an Open because it was open to amateurs as well, and it was seen as giving the pros an advantage. A couple of weeks before the tournament, all of us local caddies gathered at Hazeltine and walked all 18 holes of the course with its then head pro, Don Warrion, filling in a yardage notebook they gave each of us, detailing the distances to the green from different trees and sand traps. Then we retreated to the clubhouse dining room. There in the middle of the room was a big silver bowl that had the names of every player in the tournament folded up on little pieces of white paper. They called your name, you walked up to the bowl, you stuck your hand in, and you pulled out the pro for whom you would caddy. Talk about egalitarian. Some kid picked Jack Nicklaus. Someone else picked Arnold Palmer. Someone else picked the eventual winner, Tony Jacklin. And I picked Chichi Rodriguez, the great Puerto Rican golfer and showman. He was tied for second place after the first day when the wind was howling. He shot 73. He made the cut, came in 26th, paid me $175, and gave me all the balls and gloves in his bag. I had the time of my life, and it could never happen to a 17-year-old kid today. Because a few years later, the USGA, long before Diana was there, rescinded the ban on professional golfers at the Open. So no high school junior would ever again get the chance to pull Jack Nicklaus or Tiger Woods' name out of a silver bowl and walk inside those ropes with him for 4 days. Outside the men's locker room at Hazeltine today, there is a beautiful picture of us crew-cut high school boys plucking our professionals' names from that bowl. A lovely but distant memory of an age when, to paraphrase Michael Sandel, the Harvard philosopher, there were still things that money couldn't buy. And how many times as a caddy do you give a read, it breaks right at the end and the ball actually breaks left, and you have to take responsibility. You have to say the 5 most difficult words to pronounce in the English language. Sorry, I got that wrong. Those are important life lessons that are woven into the warp and woof of the caddy-golfer relationship. Another really important lesson you learn from caddying is about how different people handle pressure under different circumstances. We all know there is golf, there is money golf, and there is tournament golf. Lots of guys and gals are heroes on the driving range or in the practice rounds, but life is about who gets it done when the flare goes up to start the tournament. Being able to play or caddy under pressure when it really counts is a wonderful life lesson. I've had to dictate some really big stories under deadline. The blowing up of the American Embassy in Beirut, the Marine bombing, Sabra and Shatila massacre, and I am certain that skills I learned playing or caddying under pressure certainly came in handy at those times. The most important lesson golf teaches, and every caddy learns the first time that he or she reads a putt for a golfer and tells them to play it 1 ball left, and it actually breaks right. And that is that golf is played on an uneven surface. And it is that fact that makes the game of golf the sport that is most like life. Because life, as President Clinton first observed to me, is also played on an uneven surface. So good and bad breaks are built into the game, as they are into life. And therefore, everything rides on how you respond to good and bad breaks. In the course of a lifetime, you get a lot of good and bad breaks. Sometimes the ball bounces off a tree 3 feet from the cup, and sometimes it bounces off the tree into the creek. How you respond to those bounces, how you control your emotions or pick yourself up and fight or not, that is the variable that matters most. It's true in golf, and it's true in life. For me personally, what all these stories have in common is one overriding message. What a gift of a lifetime this game and caddying have been for me. And I know for so many of you here, the bonding with my father, the lasting friendships from my youth, the new friendships added over the years, and most importantly, back to our caddying theme, the hugely valuable life lessons that golf teaches all of us. It's vital that our game survive. It is vital that caddy programs survive within our game. And it's vital that the Evans Scholarship Program thrive so that many more young people get a chance to leverage all the lessons they've learned caddying and leverage them into college degrees. As for being elected to the Caddy Hall of Fame, let me simply say, that's going right up on my wall next to my diploma from Oxford. And don't ask me which one I value more. I think you know. Thank you.